At the celebration banquet, a group of well-dressed women surrounded me, all praising how far-sighted I was for locking down Mr. Sean back in high school. In this tight social circle of privilege and influence, everyone knew that Mr. Sean only ever loved Miss Claire. They said I was finally about to make it, about to become Mrs. Sean. One woman leaned in with a hint of mock concern and said, "Claire, you should ask for more shares while Sean still loves you. Otherwise, when you lose both the man and the money, you'll be the one left crying." The moment those words dropped, the whole room fell silent. No one dared to speak. I curled my fingers slightly, my palm tightening as I stared at the woman who had just spoken. Mrs. Grace. Everyone in the circle knew her story. She and Mason grew up together, childhood sweethearts who married right after college. But not even 6 months into their marriage, Mason's cheating scandals were already making the rounds. Their decade-long love story had turned into a laughingstock. She had cried, she had fought, she had begged. At first, Mason tried to behave for a while, but when he got bored and tired, he stopped pretending altogether and never bothered sparing her a shred of dignity again. Mrs. Grace's gaze fell mockingly on a particular spot. I followed her line of sight. There stood Sean Yanzo, tall and poised like a crane among the crowd, holding a wine glass and calmly listening to the woman beside him. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but Sean gave a faint, silent smile, and his expression softened noticeably. I recognized that woman immediately, his secretary of 3 years, Rachel. She wore a simple, flowing white dress and stood elegantly at Sean's side. They weren't being overtly affectionate, but just standing there. They looked like a couple deeply in love, completely in sync, as if no one else could possibly fit between them. If I weren't Sean's girlfriend, I might have admired the scene too. Such a golden couple, flawless together. Rachel noticed me watching her. Her eyes filled with disdain, and she curled her lips into a smirk before turning away to continue talking to Sean. Sean glanced over Rachel's shoulder and looked at me, his gaze blank and unmoved, as though I were nothing more than a stranger. That one look made everything painfully clear. He didn't love me anymore. I decided that after the banquet, I would break up with Sean Yanzo. After I came out of the restroom, the guests had already started leaving, and the hall was nearly empty. But Sean was nowhere to be seen. I called his phone, no answer. I texted him. It showed unread. Then I remembered the conversation I had overheard in the restroom. Sean and his girlfriend? Not officially broken up yet, but I think it's just a matter of time, someone had said. Didn't you hear Rachel? She told him it was too late to go home alone and that she was scared, and Sean immediately offered to take her home. It was already 11:30 p.m. The streets were empty and quiet. I let out a bitter laugh, flagged down a taxi, and went home. The apartment was pitch dark and eerily quiet. He hadn't come back. A wave of exhaustion washed over me, sudden and all-consuming. I stumbled into the living room and dropped onto the couch, falling into a deep sleep. Somewhere in that blurry haze, I saw the 18-year-old version of Sean, slumped over a desk near the classroom window, asleep. I was next to him, hunched over a math test, trying to solve the last tough question. The sunlight was glaring, and I could barely make out the text on the paper. I frowned, struggling to focus. Then the light faded. After I finally finished the problem, I blinked and looked up. Sean was shielding the harsh sunlight with his textbook, his slender hand holding it up for me. I stared at him, stunned, as he shook out his numb arm and waved a hand in front of my eyes, teasing with a smile. His tone was gentle. "Claire got distracted again, huh?" Then the dream jumped to the day after our college entrance exams. He stopped me outside the school, his ears blushing red but trying hard to stay calm. "Claire, I like you. If you become my girlfriend, I promise to treat you well for the rest of my life. No one will ever be allowed to hurt you." I had asked, "What if you're the one who hurts me?" I still remembered how he didn't even hesitate before answering, his eyes serious and firm. "I would never hurt you, Claire. But if that day ever comes, then don't stay with me. That would be the cruelest punishment you could give me." In my half-sleeping state, I thought I heard my phone ringing. I picked it up, and on the other end, a familiar voice called my name, "Claire." Without thinking, I spoke into the phone. "Sean Yanzo, you're hurting me. I don't want you anymore." I didn't wait for a response. I tossed the phone aside and went back to sleep. The next morning, I was woken up by the sound of my phone ringing. As soon as I answered, I heard my best friend's anxious voice. "Sean didn't come home last night." I froze for a moment, then instinctively reached for the spot beside me. Nothing. The cold emptiness of the sheets sent a chill through my heart. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice unusually hoarse and tired, probably from having slept too long. She hesitated, then cautiously asked, "Have you seen the news?" A sinking feeling told me something had happened, something involving me and Sean. I offered her a few soft reassurances, then hung up and opened the news app. Everywhere I looked, there were photos and videos of rising executive Sean Yanzhou spending the night at a hotel with a mysterious woman. In the video, Sean's black suit jacket was draped over the woman's shoulders. She was huddled in his arms, tightly clinging to his waist. Their voices were inaudible, but the camera clearly captured the moment when Sean bent down, picked her up bridal style, and carried her straight into the hotel. They didn't come out again until 8 a.m. the next morning, having changed clothes and exiting the hotel one after the other. I gripped my hands so tightly that my nails dug into my skin, but I couldn't even feel the pain. Then I heard the door beep as someone entered the security code. I looked up. Sean walked in, removed his coat, and took off his tie before finally meeting my eyes. "Claire, something came up last night," he started to explain, but my motion of tossing him my phone interrupted him mid-sentence. He caught it and froze when he saw the screen. It was a photo of him carrying Rachel in his arms. He pinched the bridge of his nose, then handed the phone back to me with a tired expression. "I had too much to drink last night and couldn't get home on my own. You'd been drinking too, so it wasn't safe for you to drive me." I figured I'd just book her a room at the hotel. I got her to the room, and she grabbed me and started talking about how hard these 3 years have been. I must have dozed off while listening to her. Believe it or not, nothing happened between us. Not a single word about the embrace. I gave a faint smile. "I believe you." Sean looked like he was about to say more, but I cut him off, raising an eyebrow. "Good. Because I'm tired. Don't expect me to be like Grace, crying and threatening suicide." I stood up and walked toward him, my gaze fixed on the faint lipstick stain on his shirt collar. I smiled coldly. "If you don't want me to become like her," I said, "then let's break up." Sean frowned deeply, his lips pressed into a tight line. He stared at me and let out a short laugh. "Claire, the company just went public. There are going to be rumors like this all the time. Are you going to threaten me with a breakup every single time?" Even though I already knew he wasn't the 18-year-old Sean anymore, the pain in my chest still bloomed like 1,000 tiny needles. It was suffocating. I chuckled softly. "If it's a threat, you'll find out soon enough. Don't worry, after we break up, I'll be a proper ex. And unless fate intervenes, we probably won't see each other again." I didn't look at him again. I started packing. Other than essential clothes, I decided not to take anything else. But then I worried that leaving stuff behind might make him think I was playing hard to get. So I packed everything and threw out whatever I didn't need. Sean left again while I was packing. I left him a note. "This apartment belongs to both of us. Please calculate my share and transfer it to me. You can keep the place." With that settled, I booked a flight to Shanghai for that evening. Shanghai was my hometown. After graduation, Sean had decided to start his business in Beijing and asked me if I wanted to come with him. I had agreed without hesitation. My only tie to Beijing was Sean. Now that we had broken up, there was no reason for me to stay. When I got home, my parents didn't say a word when they saw me dragging my luggage. Instead, they took me out for a bowl of crab roe noodles, my favorite since childhood, something I hadn't eaten in years. Nothing in the house had changed. My room still looked exactly the same as it had 3 years ago, as if time had frozen. I was surrounded by a warmth I hadn't felt in so long. When my older brother heard I was back, he didn't say a word. He just drove back from Hangzhou in the middle of the night. By the time he got home, it was 2 a.m. I was already fast asleep, so he didn't wake me. The next morning, he told me he had a gathering that night. His old classmates had heard I was back and insisted he bring me along. I had met most of his classmates before and I was familiar with a few of them, so I agreed to go. When they saw me, they all teased me in unison. Our little sister's all grown up. One joked. Really, what they say is true. Girls change the most after 18. You're getting prettier by the day. Now that you're back, don't leave again, another chimed in. Shanghai's great. You've got all of us big brothers watching out for you. No one would dare mess with you here. Actually, someone added, I should introduce you to a boyfriend sometime. I promise, he suddenly yelped. Hey, who kicked me? He looked around, but no one paid him any attention. Everyone here had gone to Min University, except for Ethan. Ethan was the only one who didn't join in the jokes. He looked past the others, his eyes fixed on me. There was something shadowed and unreadable swirling in his beautiful gaze. My brother gave a short cough beside him. That seemed to bring Ethan back to reality. He finally spoke. Claire, he said, welcome home. His voice was clear, but with a faint rasp, like a feather brushing lightly across my heart, making it tingle. I could feel my cheeks heat up uncontrollably. A few rounds of drinks later, my courage rose with the alcohol. I leaned over and whispered to my brother, why does Ethan feel like some seductive southern fox spirit now? My brother glanced at Ethan and snorted coldly. More like a peacock showing off. You be careful, don't let him charm you. I looked at Ethan through my slightly drunken haze. He was wearing a simple white shirt. In the cool, pale lighting, his features looked more refined and aloof than ever. His long, slender fingers rested casually on a white porcelain cup, and though his face showed no emotion, his gaze occasionally drifted my way, so faint it was almost imperceptible, yet it stirred something inexplicably deep in my chest. I snapped myself out of it and patted my cheeks, trying to clear my head. Toward the end of the night, my brother got a call. There was a case at the station and they needed him to come in. Before leaving, he handed me the car keys and told me to drive myself home. I offered to let him drive and said I could just take a taxi. He was about to respond when Ethan suddenly said, I can take Claire home. I was stunned and looked up at him. Strangely, my brother didn't agree right away. Instead, he frowned and stared at Ethan. The two of them locked eyes in silence for about 10 seconds, before my brother finally looked away, picked up the keys, and said to me, text me when you get home. Ethan ended up driving me back. Earlier, the crowd had made his presence less noticeable. But now that it was just the two of us alone in the car, the confined space seemed saturated with his presence, wrapping around me like a current I couldn't shake. My throat suddenly felt tight for no reason. As we approached the entrance to my complex, I suddenly blurted out, Ethan, do you like me? He didn't answer. He lowered his gaze and stared straight at me, eyes intense and piercing. There was no attempt to hide the raw heat and longing simmering in his dark pupils. My heart started to race wildly. I scrambled to think of how to explain my impulsive question, but by then he had already parked the car and unbuckled his seatbelt. Lowering his head again, he looked at me and said clearly, yes, I like you. The darkness inside and outside the car made everything feel surreal, like I was slipping out of reality. Maybe it was the scent of cedar on him, it made me feel calm. Maybe it was the alcohol. But by the time I fully processed it, I was already with him, wrapped up in the moment, our breaths tangled, fast and uneven. I couldn't even tell which gasps were mine and which were his. His kiss left me dizzy, my breathing unsteady. I let out a soft murmur, trying to end the kiss, but he held the back of my head firmly. The sound of our panting and our thundering heartbeats filled the car, eroding the last of my reason. Something in my mind snapped. Ethan, I whispered, let's go to your place. Like an excited teenager, he pulled me into his arms and buried his face in the crook of my neck, trying to calm himself down. After a while, I heard his husky voice. Claire, if you regret this, it's still not too late. I felt a sudden rush of heat to my head and blurted out, whoever regrets it is a little puppy. He let out a quick breath and laughed, a low, ticklish sound that vibrated right through me. My ears tingled. I gave him a little shove and muttered, Hey, how long are you going to keep laughing? He lifted his head and barked twice at me, like a puppy. I instantly understood what he meant. My face flushed red all at once. For the next few days, I avoided seeing Ethan. I kept thinking about what he said after dropping me off, that he didn't want me to regret anything done on impulse. He said he'd give me time. But not too much, because he had already waited 10 years. Even though we didn't see each other, he was always around. Every morning, afternoon, and evening, he'd call to check in. If he found something delicious, he'd send it to my place via delivery. If there wasn't a delivery option, he'd buy it himself and arrange a courier. He knew I loved roses, so every day for the past several days, he had fresh, different varieties sent to me. My brother eventually found out it was from him. After a long silence, he said, "Ethan liked you all the way back in high school, but I didn't want anything to distract you from your studies, so I told him he had to wait until after your college entrance exams to confess. But when the exams were over, I showed up with Sean. Ethan never got a chance. Over the past 10 years, Ethan hadn't dated anyone. My brother always thought he was waiting for me. But every time he asked, Ethan would just say he wasn't waiting on purpose. He just hadn't met anyone who moved him. My brother warned me, when someone has loved in silence for too long, finally getting what they want, they may not be able to bear the pain of losing it. Don't hurt him. If you don't love him, be honest." Even without being told, I already knew. Ethan was different from Sean. He spoke less, did more. His love was deep and restrained. If we ever got together, I wanted him to have all of me, whole in both body and soul. 2 more days passed. I was arranging the bouquet of blue roses Ethan had sent when I got a call from a friend in Beijing. "Claire, you've been back home for quite a while. When are you heading back to Beijing?" I found it odd. This friend was one of Sean's old buddies. We'd never had any private contact before. Still, I responded politely, "I probably won't be going back. Why do you ask?" "Oh, no reason," he said casually. "Just some of us were planning a get-together. We haven't seen you in forever, and kinda miss you." That made me even more suspicious. Had he heard about my breakup with Sean and was trying to make a move on me? That thought instantly made my tone cold. Sean and I have already broken up. There's no reason for us to be in contact. Please don't call me again. Meanwhile, at a private club in Beijing, Sean heard my voice through the phone. It wasn't like the cold and distant tone she used with him. It was that sharp, decisive tone she used to have before they got together. He suddenly remembered that before she was his girlfriend, Claire was always like this, independent, detached, never lingering. Over time, he had forgotten who she truly was. Around him, his friends nervously watched his expression. One of them hesitantly said, "Sean, maybe try calling Claire? She really loved you. I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you." Sean set down his wine glass and said in a low voice, "Just because I sent Rachel back to her hotel, she ran off for days. Rachel's my secretary. There will be countless opportunities in the future for us to be alone together. If she's gonna freak out every time, who can deal with that? Fine, if she wants to break up, let her. We'll see who can hold out longer." Then he stood up, face cold, slammed the door, and left, leaving his friends exchanging awkward glances. Eventually, someone let out a long sigh. Everyone else's eyes mirrored the same helplessness. Back in Shanghai, Ethan called while I was drawing. I'd loved art since I was a child. My parents had enrolled me in art classes, traditional ink, oil painting, sketching. I studied them all. But what I loved most was drawing comics. After graduation, I didn't look for a job. I became a full-time comic artist and started serializing the story of my long-term romance with Sean. I even signed a contract with a publisher. But after breaking up with Sean, I hadn't updated it in a long time. Fans had been urging me to continue. Stories should have a beginning and an end. No matter how it ends, I owed them closure. "Claire, let's go get crab roe noodles," Ethan said over the phone. After working all day, just hearing crab roe noodles made my eyes light up. But then I hesitated, going out to eat alone with him? As if reading my mind, he added, "We won't talk about feelings today, just food. That crab roe noodle place is the one your brother and I used to take you to when you were in high school," Ethan said. "It's a century-old restaurant. I'm sure you'll still love it." Hearing him say that made my mouth water. "All right," I said. "Let's go get crab roe noodles." "I'll come pick you up," he replied. When I saw Ethan, I felt an immediate calm settle over me. He was leaning against the car door, hands in his pockets. In the sunlight, his white shirt looked clean and crisp. He himself seemed like pure, clear spring water. The restaurant was crowded at that hour. Ethan told me to take a seat while he poured me a glass of sour plum juice, then went to stand in line to order. His striking looks and tall figure drew the attention of several girls nearby. Some of them even had the nerve to walk up and ask for his WeChat. He pointed toward me as he spoke to them. I didn't know what he said exactly, but after glancing in my direction, the girls quickly lowered their heads and slipped away. When he came back, I couldn't wait to ask him what he had said. While mixing the noodles for me, he replied casually, "I told them I have a girlfriend. She's pretty intense, doesn't allow me to add other girls on WeChat. If I do, I don't even get to eat." I stared at his calm, fluid motions and listened to his not-so-subtle words. My heart, which had been still like a quiet lake, suddenly felt as though someone had thrown in a heavy stone. Waves rippled outward, again and again. Meanwhile, at a private club in Beijing, Sean was drinking with friends when someone suddenly exclaimed, "Hey, isn't this Claire?" At the sound of her name, Sean abruptly looked up. A friend was holding out his phone, showing something to the person next to him, as if trying to confirm what they were seeing. That person glanced at the phone, then up at Sean, but didn't dare say anything. The friend, unsure how Sean would react but also unwilling to cause trouble, finally handed the phone over. "A friend in Shanghai sent me this photo. The girl in it really looks like Claire." Sean stared at the photo. Even if she were nothing but ashes, he would still recognize her. She was eating crab roe noodles, smiling happily. The dimple at the corner of her lips, the tiny mole near her eye, identical to memory. "It's just a photo," someone said, trying to ease the tension. "We all know Claire never had any guy friends. For years it was always just you." "Yeah, Sean," another chimed in. "Could be an old classmate or something. Maybe they just ran into each other and grabbed a bite." Without warning, Sean hurled the phone against the wall. It shattered instantly into pieces. Everyone immediately fell silent, not daring to say another word. Others might not have known, but Sean did. He knew that man liked Claire. Claire had taken him to her house to get a spare key from her brother. He remembered the way that guy looked at Claire. It was exactly the way he himself looked at her. As a man, he understood that look completely. But Claire's heart back then had been filled with only him. He'd felt confident. No one could love her more than he did. So he hadn't taken it seriously. Sean still remembered the day Claire agreed to move to Beijing with him. That same day, he had received a call from someone who introduced himself as Ethan. The message was clear. "Treat Claire well. Make sure she's happy. If you can't, I'll find a way to bring her back." Sean thought, hadn't he made her happy? He worked hard every day, getting up early and staying out late to provide a better life for her. He drank with clients until his stomach bled. Now the company had gone public, and Claire could finally become the envy of every woman, the wife of a successful CEO. So why had she left? Back in Shanghai, I knew nothing of what was happening in Beijing. Unknowingly, I had already been home for a month. My relationship with Ethan was slowly deepening. Being with him, I finally began to understand what good love felt like. He made me emotionally stable, helped me open up, made me feel more confident, more cheerful, more curious about the world. Even my comic style had started to shift, more vibrant, more playful. Some of my fans even messaged me privately, "Claire, is something good about to happen?" Only then did I truly realize, no matter what, even if Sean and I had gotten married, I would never have been happy. With Sean, even 10 whole years together. The first couple of years really were happy. We didn't have the pressure of grad school or jobs or adult life in general. There weren't any misunderstandings caused by so-called friends of the opposite sex, either. But everything changed after graduation when we moved to Beijing. Sean started his company, and Rachel applied for the assistant position. At first, I didn't pay her any attention. I even felt sorry for her, constantly having to drink and socialize with Sean late into the night. To take care of them, I'd draw my comics during the day and then teach myself how to cook in the evenings. I'd pack up the meals and bring them to the office, wait for them to finish eating, and take the containers back home. Then one night, they were out late entertaining a client for a project. I was worried and decided to drive over to pick them up. When I got to the restaurant, I saw Rachel throwing up by a tree outside. I was just about to open the door to get out when Sean came jogging out of the nearby convenience store and hurried over to help her, holding out a bottle of water. For some reason I still don't fully understand, I didn't get out of the car. I just sat there and watched. Rachel drank the water, then suddenly turned and wrapped her arms around Sean in a tight hug. Sean stiffened for a moment, then slowly placed a hand on her back and gently patted it. Once the seed of doubt is planted, it doesn't just wither. It takes root and grows, and it's hard to erase. I started to test him, looking for signs, clues. And Rachel made it easy. She practically handed me the evidence. The second time, I came to the office with lunch again. The door to Sean's office wasn't fully closed. I glanced through the gap and saw Rachel gripping the ends of his tie, pushing it up with practiced ease, like she'd done it countless times. Sean was looking down at her with an expression that was both gentle and attentive. When she finished straightening the tie, she looked up and their eyes locked in a way that made the world around them disappear. I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed the half-closed door wide open. Sean stepped back. When he saw it was me, he gave a slightly awkward smile, walked up, and took the thermal container from my hands. "Claire, it's really nice having you." I glanced at Rachel, just in time to catch the flash of resentment in her eyes. That night, I told Sean I wanted Rachel transferred to another department and that he should hire a male assistant instead. He was silent for a long time, so long I thought he was going to refuse. But the next day, Rachel came to see me. She stirred her coffee slowly, every movement deliberate. "Miss Claire," she said, "I like Mr. Sean. I'd do anything for him. But I've never confessed. I've just been waiting for the day he notices me. If you drive me out today, tomorrow there'll be a Lisa and the day after a Karen. Can you drive them all away?" Her voice was calm and confident. "You already know deep down, the moment you spoke up, you'd already lost." She was right. Otherwise, why would I have asked him to get rid of her? That night, I told Sean that I'd been emotional the day before and that he should just forget what I said. He let out a breath of relief, buried his head in my chest, and said, perhaps to me and perhaps more to himself, "Claire, I'd never do anything to betray you." From that point on, I stopped bringing food to the office. He began to cut down on his social events. He started coming home earlier. We had more meals together, but we also grew quieter. The idea of breaking up had probably been there for a while. We were just both too unwilling to let go. One day, Ethan asked me to go hiking. He said there was a hot spring resort at the top of the mountain and we could soak in the springs overnight. We parked the car at the base and started walking. Unfortunately, I was in terrible shape. After just half an hour, I was panting heavily. Ethan naturally reached out and took my hand. His palm was dry and warm. It felt like strength being passed into me. I paused for a second. My heart, already racing from the climb, beat even faster. I looked down and firmly tightened my grip on his hand. The next moment, I could feel him squeeze back, his grasp becoming just a little bit stronger. We continued walking, stopping occasionally to rest, and reached the summit just before nightfall. The private hot spring pools at the resort were unbelievably comfortable. I let out a blissful sigh. Then I heard footsteps approaching. I looked up. Ethan stood in front of me wearing nothing but a white towel wrapped around his waist. His 8-pack abs were perfectly aligned, and the V-line above his hips faintly showed through. Tiny droplets of water clung to his fair, smooth skin. The sight was utterly overwhelming. I immediately covered my nose, terrified I'd get a nosebleed. He chuckled, gently pulling my hand away. "Don't hide," he laughed. I looked up at him, his eyes dazzling like stars, and I froze. He leaned in and softly kissed my eyelids, then my brow, the bridge of my nose, the corner of my lips, then down to my ear. His trail of feather-light kisses made my whole body tremble uncontrollably. "Is it okay?" he whispered. "Do I have your permission?" At this point, what was the point of pretending to be proper? I didn't answer. I just wrapped my arms around his neck and pulled him down to me. The next second, he lifted me by the waist and carried me into the bedroom. After that, my memories became a blur of tangled warmth and unfiltered emotion. Just before I passed out, I vaguely felt him hold my hand and slip something cold onto my finger. In my ear, I heard Ethan's low, gentle voice. "Claire, I love you." In the middle of the night, as I slept deeply, I vaguely heard a phone ringing. I groaned in protest. Ethan covered my ears softly and whispered, "Go back to sleep. Don't worry about it." He glanced at the caller ID. The name read Sean Yanzo. Ethan let out a quiet breath, picked up the phone, and stepped out of the bedroom. He answered calmly, slowly. On the other end, Sean's drunken voice came through. "Claire, my head hurts. I want your hangover tea." But instead of Claire's concerned response, a man's clear voice answered. "Mr. Sean, don't disturb my wife's sleep. Go ask your secretary for hangover tea." It was 1 a.m. Sean's call had been answered by a man. That said everything. It was like a bucket of ice water dumped over his head. Sean froze, chilled to the bone, barely able to breathe. His hand clenched into a tight fist, trembling slightly from the pressure. "Ethan," Sean said through gritted teeth. "I want to talk to Claire." Ethan turned back to look at the girl sleeping soundly in the room. His gaze softened, melting into tenderness. Even his voice changed, gentle and respectful. "Claire is asleep. I'll tell her you called in the morning. Whether she calls you back or not is up to her." With that, he ended the call and returned to the room. Looking at her peaceful sleeping face, he leaned down and kissed her forehead, soft, reverent, and restrained. The next morning, I rubbed my sore, aching lower back and groaned, glaring at Ethan. "You were way too much last night." He only pressed something cold into my skin. Curious, I lifted my hand and saw a pink diamond ring. Ethan was kneeling at the side of the bed, holding my hand, his expression solemn and focused. "Claire," he said seriously, "will you marry me?" His fingers were trembling. All his usual composure was gone, but he still forced himself to hold my gaze, trying to stay calm. My nose stung, and tears started streaming uncontrollably down my cheeks. Seeing me cry, Ethan panicked, fumbling to wipe away my tears. But I couldn't stop. I had always dreamed of marrying Sean, but he'd said he wanted to buy a house in Beijing first, to give me a real home. After he bought it, he said he wanted to give me the kind of life all those other rich wives had. I told him I didn't want that kind of life. I just wanted to be with him. He stroked my hair and said he couldn't let me be outdone by anyone else. Whatever other women had, I needed to have too. I didn't argue. I just waited for the company to go public, for his heart to drift away from Rachel. But all along, all I really wanted was a home. A simple home, just me and him. I didn't need a grand proposal. I didn't need a lavish wedding. I didn't need a massive diamond ring. I didn't need a room full of people praising me. Sean never understood that. But Ethan did. Choking on my tears, I couldn't even speak. I just nodded. Yes, but this idiot thought I was unwilling. He bent down to wipe away my endless tears, panicked and stumbling over his words. "I'm sorry. I was too hasty. I won't pressure you. I'll wait for the day you're ready. Please don't cry." I cried so hard I started hiccuping. "I am willing," I choked out. "I am, Ethan. I'm willing to run toward a future that has you in it. I'm willing to believe in a man who loved me quietly for 10 years but still stayed restrained and gentle." Ethan lit up like a kid who had just gotten candy. He got dressed, grabbed my hand, and we raced down the mountain. He drove us off somewhere, and as I looked around, the scenery grew more and more familiar. This was the road to my house. Once we got out, he opened the trunk and started pulling out several large bags. "What are you doing?" I asked, confused. He smiled at me like a fool. "Meeting the parents." So soon? I hadn't even prepared myself. More importantly, I hadn't even told them I was seeing someone new. I grabbed his arm, flustered and unsure of what to do. Ethan's smile faltered, falling instantly like a child who had just dropped his candy. His face crumpled with disappointment. Looking at that pitiful expression, my heart softened completely. If it's foolish, then so be it. At worst, my brother would tease me for the rest of my life. What I didn't expect was to see Sean inside the house. He was kneeling on the floor, begging my parents just to let him see me. The moment I opened the door, his eyes lit up, only for that light to completely fade when he saw Ethan standing behind me. My brother came over and, seeing the things in Ethan's hands, said, "You don't need to bring anything. You're already practically part of the family." That line was clearly meant for Sean. If Sean hadn't been there, my brother probably would have punched Ethan once or twice, just for appearances. Sean stood up and looked at me calmly, as if nothing had happened. "Claire," he said, using the name that only he used. I nodded like we were just old acquaintances. Long time no see. Why are you here? I asked. He stood still, eyes red. I came to take you home. I was surprised and heartbroken. Surprised because, in the past 3 years, I had always been the one going to bring him home. This was the first time he'd ever said that to me. Heartbroken because, why did he wait until I had completely let go, until I was finally ready to begin a new chapter? To feel regret. Sean, I said gently. Our 10 years. They've come to an end. I shook my head. This is my home now. Claire, nothing happened between Rachel and me. That lipstick on my collar, she put it there when I wasn't paying attention. I've already had her transferred to another department. I hired a new assistant. He's a guy. He pulled out a small velvet box, hands trembling. Inside was a 10-carat diamond ring. His eyes were filled with pleading and hope, soft and cautious, the Sean I hadn't seen in a long time. That only made me feel worse. Sean, I said, we could have parted peacefully. I took a deep breath and held out my hand, making sure he could clearly see the pink diamond ring on my finger. I have a boyfriend now. If you hadn't shown up today, we'd already be sitting down to discuss our wedding. Ethan walked over and took my hand in his. That simple gesture gave me strength. Sean looked down at our joined hands. A bitter smile tugged at his lips. In a low voice, almost a whisper, he asked, Claire, one last time, are you really not coming home with me? I shook my head. Sean, I hope you'll be happy. He suddenly threw the ring box against the wall. The diamond ring flew out, struck the wall, and hit the ground with a sharp clatter. Claire, he said, voice trembling, we were together for 10 years? And now 10 years of love loses to just 1 month? Is that all love means to you? That you can just leave whenever you want? Be with someone else whenever you want? You think he doesn't have a female assistant? Sean said. That his assistant would never try to seduce him? So if you're with someone, does that mean they can't be around anyone of the opposite sex at all? We were together for 10 years and never got married. You've only been with him for a month, and you're already planning a wedding? You're still so naive. If you don't change, your tomorrow with him will look exactly like your yesterday with me. I didn't respond. I just looked at him, at those familiar yet now distant features. The 28-year-old Sean overlapped and then peeled away from the 18-year-old boy I once knew, until both versions vanished completely. My brother suddenly charged out from inside and landed a hard punch straight across Sean's face. Sean stumbled to the floor, the corner of his lips stained with a few drops of blood. But he didn't fight back. He didn't speak. His beautiful eyes were filled with an overwhelming sorrow that wouldn't dissolve. I knew he regretted it. Don't you dare compare Ethan to garbage like you, my brother said. Ethan doesn't have a female assistant. All his assistants are male. He avoids social drinking unless absolutely necessary. Do you think a business built on liquor can last? You were with Claire for 10 years. And for how many of those years did you make her feel miserable? 3 whole years. During those 3 years, if at any point you had actually seen how sad she was, you wouldn't be standing here right now. The day your company went public, Ethan called Claire to wish her happiness. He told me if she was happy, he'd let go for good. But then Claire told him you hurt her and that she didn't want you anymore. He almost flew to Beijing that same day to bring her home. I was the one who talked him out of it. Do you even realize that those 10 years you had with her were the 10 years someone else could only dream of? I gently pulled my brother back and shook my head. In that moment, I didn't even feel sadness anymore. Sean Yenjo, to me, was now nothing more than a stranger. Mr. Sean, I said calmly, I apologize on behalf of my brother. I hope you can understand, he was just trying to protect his little sister. Please go. Don't come back. Sean stood there quietly, his lips pale, his eyes closing slowly. When he opened them again, they were bloodshot. Ethan tugged on my finger. I turned my head and looked at him. His eyes curved slightly, lit up with warmth and sparkle. I couldn't help but smile back. And it was in that moment, seeing me and Ethan share a look, that Sean finally realized I truly didn't love him anymore. He had never imagined life without me. I had been the moonlight of his youth, the girl he had once longed to bring home as his bride. When did things start to change? Maybe it was when Rachel started looking at him with those admiring eyes. when I caught him lowering his head with a faint, unconscious smile, leaving only the blush on his face and neck to betray his thoughts. Maybe it was during the endless social events where he and Rachel worked seamlessly together, clinching deal after deal, while he wondered if someone as simple and insecure as me was really the right match. Maybe it was when Rachel hugged him in tears, begging for nothing but an embrace, and he didn't refuse. Maybe it was when I asked him to transfer Rachel to another department, and he hesitated. Or when the company finally went public and I asked when we would get married, and he avoided the question out of fear. He thought those were just passing moments, that they wouldn't change our ending. He thought that as long as I didn't cry or fight, we'd just keep going, peacefully coexisting. But I had known all along. I had just been waiting for the right moment to end it. On the day I married Ethan, I received a text. "I hope you find happiness. I'm sorry." I knew it was from Sean, but I felt nothing. I simply turned and deleted it. That idiot Ethan got jealous over it. After we got married, Ethan dragged me across the country to every place he wanted us to see together. He said we had lost 10 years, and he was going to spend the next few decades making up for it. Holding my waist, which was sore from his making up for lost time, I muttered, "You don't have to make up for it like this." That night, we saw the northern lights. The radiant colors stretched across the sky like they had traveled through the universe just to meet us here. Just like how Ethan and I had traveled across 10 years to find each other again. That was the night we found out we were having a baby. We had originally planned to head to Switzerland after seeing the aurora. But suddenly, I started feeling sick, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Ethan thought I must have eaten something bad, so he rushed me to the hospital. After describing my symptoms, the doctor recommended we head to the obstetrics and gynecology department for a blood test. The moment the words left the doctor's mouth, Ethan and I locked eyes, both of us stunned, wide-eyed, seeing the same spark of joy and disbelief in each other. Our travel plans were instantly scrapped. We returned to Shanghai and focused on taking care of the pregnancy. 9 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The delivery went smoothly, but it still scared Ethan out of his mind. Without telling me, he secretly went and got a vasectomy. He swore he'd never let me go through the pain of childbirth again. This fool. He didn't realize that if he had told me, I would have loved him even more. Extra. After Sean returned to Beijing, he immediately went to find Rachel. He gave her 2 options, either transfer to another department or resign and take a portion of the company's equity. Rachel clung to him in tears, saying she was willing to do anything as long as she could stay with him, begging him not to push her away. Sean said, "If you stay, Claire will never forgive me." Rachel froze. Then she suddenly snapped back, shouting, "Sean, you've already fallen in love with me. Why are you pushing me away? Claire left because she knew your heart was no longer with her." My throat felt like it was being crushed. A bitter taste filled my mouth, and then I laughed. I laughed until I cried. It was me. I was the one who gave Rachel hope. I made her believe I loved her. That gave her the confidence to hurt Claire without guilt. How much pain did Claire endure during those 3 years? I didn't even dare to imagine, and even worse, I knew I was the one who caused it. All I had ever wanted was to marry her, to give her a good life. And now I know, I'll never be able to find happiness for the rest of my life. The end.